Hello YouTube and fellow DC comic fans. I'm Keith One Shot and this is my Comic Complete dramatic reading series. And today we will be covering The Flash Rebirth, issue 24, The Color of Fear Part 2, Run for Your Life, from DC Rebirth. All art, text, characters, and storyline belong to DC Comics, not me. If you enjoy these stories, feel free to go out and support DC Comics in your local comic book shop. It's the 25th century. A voice begins to narrate. It's always bothered me when people call it to power, because it is so much more than that. The way the Flash uses the Speed Force to be a hero shows us that it is a blessing. The Speed Force is more than a power. It is hope made real. But with all blessings in the multiverse, there has to be a cost, a burden to that blessing, an opposite, a negative, a reverse. We then return to the present, where the Flash and Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, are still mid-battle with Multiplex from the previous issue, and Barry is thinking to himself, my girlfriend Iris threw me a surprise birthday party at a miniature golf course, invited my family and my friends. Heck, even Hal Jordan showed up, but I'm pretty sure Iris didn't put Multiplex on the list. Multiplex was stalking a woman he was obsessed with. I'd like to say it ruined my birthday party, but I did that myself. While fighting several multiplexes at once, Hal Jordan tells Flash, this really doesn't seem like 2 against 1. Then the Flash replies, we just need to find the real deal, Green Lantern. Dalton Black then says to them in a rage, am I the original? I'm not sure I know anymore, Flash. I can generate as many copies of myself as I want, but what do you do if the one person you can't stand to be with is yourself? As the Flash is racing to find the real Dalton Black in a sea of multiplex duplicates, the Flash thinks to himself, Iris put this party together for me, and I was so lost in thought and rude to the guests, it would have been better if I hadn't shown up, and that's worse than being late. I tried to explain, but Iris accused me of being dishonest, and she's right. She knows there's more to Barry Allen than just being distracted, and I'm not sure if I can keep lying to the woman I love. We then jump over to the house of Iris West, where Wally West brought Iris to get away from Multiplex at the end of Color of Fear Part 1, only to find Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, was at Iris' house waiting for the two of them to get here. Iris then says with fear, Thawne, and the Reverse Flash replies, my dear Iris West, it is still West, right? It's so very good to see you, so young and full of life. Wally then shouts, Iris, run! But Iris says, I'm not leaving without you, Wally. Reverse Flash then interrupts the two of them by saying, you know what? In my time, I was an expert on all things Flash, but for one reason or another that has changed. I've raced nearly all the Flash's protégés. Just then, Wally throws a lightning energy bolt at Thawne and says, get back, Thawne! But the Reverse Flash easily reflects Wally's shock as Thawne continues to say, but you, young Wallace, was new. A clear example that the Flash's history was altered while I was recovering. I have many questions about what else has been rebooted, and I was hoping that you'd help fill in some blanks. Since the three of us have all been hurt by the same man, our lives forever affected by his choices. You know how hard it is to find someone who can empathize with what he's done to us. Iris then quickly grabs her phone, but the Reverse Flash is too fast, and he runs over and grabs the phone from Iris' hand, and then with anger in his eyes says to Iris, and it would mean so much to me if you share in my pain. Then we hear Wally West say, if you're looking for some pain, how about Kid Flash kicks your butt? Then we see Wally in his yellow and red Kid Flash suit, and the kid is ready to fight Thawne. Thawne replies quickly to Kid Flash, and the Reverse Flash has an odd smile on his face as he says to Wally, there he is, tell me something. Are you impulsive, or are you the kind who's forever lost in Flash's shadow? As Thawne runs over to Wally and cracks him with a knee to the gut, and Thawne asks Wally, what kind of Kid Flash are you? We then return to Green Lantern fighting Multiplex, and Hal says to Flash, for every Multiplex clone I smack down with my Power Ring Flash, 5 more take its place. Any luck finding the head honcho? Barry replies to Hal by saying, give me a second. As Barry speeds by, he's also thinking to himself, if I'm gonna find the real Multiplex, I need to treat his clones like evidence in my crime lab. Find a pattern. But unlike the lab, I need to look fast. Then the Flash stops running, stands still, and thinks to himself, when you live life the way that I do, the world slows down to a crawl. Only those with access to the Speed Force know what it's like, how quiet it can be. In the past, it's given me time to think about my choices. Maybe too much. Here, a second feels like days. A meaningful glance lingers for a lifetime. A moment of regret is an eternity. And you'll notice things that no one else will. Back at the house of Iris West, we see the Reverse Flash continue its assault on Kid Flash, breaking the bolts on Wally's mask and lifting him up by the throat, choking Wally. Then Wally says to Thawne, you want to see something the Flash taught me, Thawne? And Wally punches at Thawne, but Reverse Flash catches Wally's punch and says to Wally, a punch? That's what you have to show for yourself? And Wally replies, I wanted you to catch my fist, so our charges can conflict, And then, suddenly, a boom of lightning sends the two of them blasting. But that doesn't stop Thorn as he continues to attack Kid Flash and says to Wally, "Lightning burst. Ha! I'll admit, that is unique, but we both know you're just a fake Kid Flash. Hell, you're not even the real Wally West," as Thorn continues to kick Wally West at the knee, cracking him over and over again. We then return to the fight with Multiplex, and the Flash is thinking to himself, all the copies of Multiplex head towards the fight with Hal, except this one. His focus is somewhere else, looking for someone else. As the Flash finds a real Dalton Black, he races over and punches Dalton in the chest, and the Flash thinks to himself, Multiplex's powers are the result of nuclear fusion, and it is that energy that keeps him connected to his copies. A shock from my Speed Force lightning might be enough to sever his connection. The only way to beat Multiplex is to isolate him. Then the Flash grabs a hold of Dalton Black and sends a shock of Speed Force lightning right at Multiplex, releasing a radius blast of energy around the two of them, and Hal Jordan says to the Flash, "Whoa, you weren't kidding when you asked for a second." With Multiplex now defeated, Hal says to Flash, "Multiplex should only hope that Iron Heights doesn't throw him in solitary confinement. That'd make me go Joker level crazy." The Flash replies saying, "Yeah, right." We then return to the house of Iris West, where the Reverse Flash has Wally on the ground, standing above Wally, with his foot on Wally's knee, as Dawn says to Kid Flash, "Time for an experiment. Pay attention. At this very moment, the Speed Force works to heal your injuries. The bones and tendons in your knee try to rebuild at an inhuman rate, much too quickly to heal properly. What would happen if I were to break it again?" Then Thorn keeps smashing Wally's knee, breaking it over and over again, as Iris looks on in fear, and Wally is left screaming in pain. Then, suddenly from behind, Iris is about to strike Thorn with a stick. Then the Reverse Flash says to Iris, "I'm surprised at you most of all, Iris. After everything your brother and father put you through, how could you let a man like the Flash into your home?" Then Iris says to Thorn, "What are you talking about?" Thorn then grabs Iris' wrist and says to Iris, "Excuse me? You don't know. Now that is an interesting twist." Back with the Green Lantern and the Flash, the two are floating above where the fight just happened, on a green energy construct that looks just like a bar, and Hal says to Flash, "I didn't even know you and Iris were dating, man." And Barry replies saying, "Well, I haven't seen you since Darkseid, Hal." Then Hal says, "Okay, come on, talk to me, man. What's up with you and Iris?" Then Flash says, I haven't told her that I'm the Flash." And Hal replies saying, "You've never been good at keeping secrets, so dating a woman whose job has the word investigative in it wasn't the smartest move, Barry." Barry then tells Hal, "I worry if she knew, she'd be in danger. That if any of the Flash's enemies ever found out about her, they'd hurt her just to get to me, just like Thorn did to my mother." Then Hal tells the Flash, "Barry, I've seen you race into a horde of parademons with a smile on your face. I've never seen you this afraid before. What aren't you saying, Barry?" Then Barry looks up and says, what if I told Iris the truth, and she leaves?" Meanwhile, below the Flash and the Green Lantern's conversation, we see the police are putting Multiplex into the back of a vehicle for transport, and Dalton Black says, "Can someone ride in the back with me, please?" And someone is already there with Dalton Black, and they say to Dalton, "Welcome to the black hole, Multiplex," as Dalton Black screams out. Hal Jordan and the Flash continue their conversation, and Hal says to Barry, "You know, I've had my fair share of experiences in giving in to fear and what it can do to you. So, it's simple. If you love her, tell her. Be fearless." Barry then says to Hal, when was the last time you had to deal with any sort of love life or secret identity? Do you even have an address on Earth anymore?" Then Hal jokes, "I have a P.O. box." Then Barry says, "Even before you made space your full-time gig, you never really had a meaningful..." Then Hal throws his hands up in the air and says to the Flash, "You got me, I surrender. I'm no relationship expert, but listen, I know this. Some people are the life is short types, and others believe life is long. Which are you?" Barry then hangs his head low and says, It's just, when my parents were my age, they were already married, you know?" Then Hal puts his arm on Barry's shoulders and tells Barry, "Yeah, well, when my dad was my age, he was already dead." Then Flash replies by telling Hal, "Thanks for coming to my birthday party, man. I know being a space cop and dealing with the Sinestro Corp can take up a lot of your time. What's the deal with bad guys wearing yellow anyway?" Then Hal tells Barry, "It's a color of fear." The Flash then runs off and says, "Don't be a stranger." And Hal Jordan replies by saying, "Just look to the stars if you need me." Barry then thinks to himself as he's racing away, "Life can be short or long. When I was a kid, my father gave me a watch. There was an inscription on it that read, 'Every second is a gift.' I think after the last few months, I lost sight of that. And Hal reminded me, it's time to do the right thing." Then we see Barry walking up to the house of Iris West with the door cracked open, and Barry knows that something is wrong as he says, "Iris," and he opens the door and he sees Wally West is on the ground, beaten near death and covered in blood. Barry rushes over to check on Wally, and Barry says, "Wally, are you hurt?" Wally replies by saying, "Barry, the Speed Force is trying to heal me, but something's wrong." Then Barry says, Where is Iris? Wally then points over to the wall and tells Barry, "Thorn left you a message." And there on the wall, written in blood, is a message that reads, "You know where I live." Barry Allen now no longer seems afraid, and with a look of determination on his face, Barry suits up as the Flash and picks up Kid Flash as he begins running and thinking to himself, "Need to get Wally to Star Labs. The doctors still have some of the data of the Speed Force storm, and they can monitor his healing from there. Then, I need to find Thorn, but if I'm understanding his message correctly, it's not a matter of where, but when." We then see the Reverse Flash zoom to the 25th century where he is from, with Iris West in his arms, and Thorn says to Iris, "Welcome to the 25th century, Iris." She then replies by saying, "What? You're crazy." Then Thorn says, "Oh, please, you know me better than that, Iris. We have such a rich history together after all. But, if you don't remember, perhaps I shall jog your memory." As Thorn grabs a random man, and he vibrates his hands right to the man's head, and then into the man's head, killing him in an instant. Iris West is afraid and frightened as she tries to run away from me aboard Thorn, as he says to Iris, "Running, really?" Iris then says, Where am I?" Then the Reverse Flash quickly zooms ahead of Iris and tells her, "You and I shared a moment long ago, Iris. Seeing you again, it makes me happy that I wasn't the only one granted a second chance." Iris then says, What do you want from me?" The Reverse Flash then grabs Iris from behind and tells Iris, "To give you a gift, to remember a past life when I killed you." And that ends this issue of The Flash Rebirth, issue 24, The Color of Fear, Part 2, Run for Your Life. Comic published by DC Comics. All rights, story art, and characters are owned by DC Comics and their respective owners, not me. This has been The Flash Rebirth, issue 24, The Color of Fear, Part 2, Run for Your Life, and I'm your host, Keith Oneshot. If you like this video, make sure to support DC Comics, pick up a copy of the trades or single issues, support your local comic book shop, take care, and have a great day. Goodbye!